Alright, riddle me this. What do you get when you take Pokemon mixed with zombies, violence, and movies, and early to mid 2000s anime references? Well, you get none other than Pokemon Snakewood. This is a ROM hack of Pokemon Ruby created in 2010 by Poke Community user Cutlerine, and it ended up becoming one of the most popular fan games during the early days of Gen 3 ROM hacking. The premise revolves around the Hoenn region getting caught in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, which was an interesting idea at the time. Zombies were all the craze back in the 2000s, and Snakewood's release window ended up being at the right place at the right time, releasing a few days before the debut of AMC's The Walking Dead, which ended up significantly increasing the popularity of any zombie-related media even further. Nowadays, it's considered a product of its time, with some frustrating elements and tons of glitches.
I don't understand. Why are you white?
Despite that, it's still a ROM hack that gets recommended by people thanks to the concept alone. A while back, guys, I had to make a quick trainer talk for some friends who were playing the hack on Discord. It wasn't really much, just the level cap and the Pokemon each boss battle had. Now fast forward to 2022. Good God, I'm behind in this shit. While I was sitting on my desk with nothing else to do, I thought to myself, you know what, that Snakewood doc I made earlier was cool and all, but I'm starting to realize that there isn't a lot of good documentation with this game. Screw it, I might as well make a quick trainer and WoW encounter doc for this decade-old hack. After all, I have the tools necessary to do this. How long could it take? Okay, maybe I went a little bit overkill with these docs. Well, I have nothing better to do, so... Okay, what the hell was a deathlocke? Well, it's similar to a hardcore nuzlocked, except with two major changes. One, if I lose a single Pokemon, even if it's from a WoW encounter or a random trainer, I must reset to the very beginning of the game. And two, I'm allowed to choose whichever encounter I want, but I still have to capture one Pokemon in that area. Removing this rule actually creates the One Death Equals Reset challenge we all know and love, which was actually the original challenge for this video, but... Don't be skitty. Please don't be skitty. Yeah, I realized I value my life enough to change it to a different challenge. The only other rules that I'm adding on top of this is 1, I can't use any weather moves, setup moves, or Oko moves, and 2, I'm changing the way the level caps work. Using the gym badges and E4 for the level cap makes the mid-game in particular very easy because the 5th badge split, which by the way is a very large portion of the game, increases the level cap from 36 to 51. So instead, I made it so that the majority of the boss battles have their own level caps. And if a boss cap is lower than the previous one, then I'll just stick to the previous level cap. Now, let's picture this scenario. You wake up in the middle of Littleroot Town. What was once a small yet peaceful town where you started your journey is now abandoned and consists of nothing but a bunch of boulders and wherever the hell this is. You have no memory as to who you are or how you even got here. Yet despite this, you have a bad feeling that something terrible happened. And before you advance further to Oldale, you should probably find something to defend yourself with. Nearby what remains of Professor Birch's lab are 3 Pokeballs with subtle hints as to what they are. One is spewing out toxic fumes from his Pokeball. One has an air of ill health around it. And the other one likes to spin a lot. Now, I want you all to just pause the video for a minute, and I want you all to comment down below, what do you think these Pokemon are? Go ahead, I have all day. In fact, pause the video if you want. Come on, just do it, man. I'm really desperate for the YouTube algorithm to recognize me after what happened to the last video. Okay, time's up. If you guessed that the starters of Pokemon Snakewood are Coughing, Paris, and Baltoy, then congratulations! Die. This weird starter trio is meant to be a set of starters themed around the apocalypse. Paris is pretty obvious since its evolution is literally a zombie. The Coughing line is based off of heavy pollution and toxic fumes, which can't be major things that causes an apocalypse. And Baltoy? Who cares? Let's go over why the starter trio sucks. Weezing is a pretty decent defensive Pokemon, but outside of Explosion, this Pokemon barely does anything. Doesn't help that its Gen 3 level awareness set is laughably bad, and in a game where TMs are more limited than they already were in the vanilla games, this evolution line pretty much has no coverage moves. It could potentially do something in the first badge split, but I have better options. Now, Paris at first seems a bit promising. Parasect along with Weezing had their stats changed so that all 3 final forms had the same base stat total. For Weezing, it's barely anything, but for Parasect it's a huge stat buff. Plus it still evolves to level 24, making a decent bad street split onwards. Plus Spore by itself is a pretty good reason to pick Paras. But literally talk to anyone who's ever played Snakewood before and they'll tell you multiple reasons as to why Paras sucks. It has by far the worst early game imaginable, since while Parasect gets a stat boost, you're still dealing with a vanilla Paras with its horrible stats, its 6 weaknesses, and this is Gen 3 we're talking about, so unless your name is Heracross, the strongest bug stat you'll ever get is either Silver Wind, which this line doesn't get, or the low base power Leech Life, which Paras gets at level 19. I mean, come on, there has to be more buffs than a slight stat change. What else does this line get? Well, Paras does get Water Absorb, which doesn't carry over to its evolution due to an oversight. Oh, and Parasect gets Leaf Blade in this game at level 62. Honestly, this could have been a good pick if it got any better buffs that make a good late game to make up for Paras being, you know, Paras. But as it is, it's not worth considering. This just leaves Claydol, and much like the others, it's a decent Pokemon brought down by a rather terrible moveset on top of the fact that the TMs for its strongest stab moves are locked behind late game. However, this evolution line has one thing going for it. Unlike the other starters, Baltoy actually has a solid early game since it has access to Side Beam at level 11. Yeah, that's the only reason why I chose this thing. Once I one-shot the first trainer, I'd go see Professor Birch in order to not only unlock Pokeballs, but also receive this egg, which after running around Oldale Town, I was able to hatch into another egg. Alright, lore time. Apparently my brother Landon, along with Birch's daughter May, have gone missing and I'm tasked to find them and hopefully retrieve my memories along the way. After beating this goth chick with my newly hatched egg, I proceeded to Route 103 and caught a Zigzagoon. This Pokemon would become my main damage dealer throughout the entire first half of early game, as Funny Stab Headbutts destroyed most of the zombies in this area. I then proceeded to skip every other encounter in order to immediately head towards Petalburg Woods, where I want to catch a Slackoth. Now, one thing that Snakewood adds are new evolutions to mostly Hoenn Pokemon. In this case, Vigoroth gains an alternate evolution into this thing. It's a normal Psychic Split evolution with high special attack and speed that keeps Vital Spirit at the cost of not being so bulky. On its own, it's fine. But as an evolution, it's severely outclassed by Slacking, who provides a lot more to the table due to its bulk and capability to one-shot Pokemon that are otherwise hard to counter. Plus, just look at this ugly ass piece of shit. It looks like the OC of a grifter whose side hustles to whine about how Wolfie's method of inhaling oxygen is bad for the competitive scene. So why am I bringing this up? Clearly one's superior over the other, so the correct choice is to evolve Vigoroth into Slacking. Except, nuh-uh, cause they gave Vigoroth the same evolution method as Wormpole. Under my rules, I can't change what split evolution this evolves into. So what I did was, once I caught Slackoth, I saved my game and rare candied it until it fully evolves. If it's Slacking, then I reset back to my save file and continue to run from there. Otherwise, I reset the run. In this case, after a few attempts, I was finally able to get one that evolved into Slacking and continue my run. I then get my other encounters with Poochyena on Route 102 and Wormpole on Route 104, who either evolves to a really solid early game Mon or a Beautifly. With all my encounters caught, I'm ready to fight the main boss of this section, Demon Corpse Zablar. Its first Pokemon dies immediately because it decided to use an X attack turn 1, but its second Pokemon, Dirtcrow, is a bit of a problem due to a combination of glare and strong wing attacks. Fortunately, I was able to put it to sleep with Slackoth, which gave us enough time for Zigzagoon to finish it off. Upon defeating it, the demon disintegrates, leaving behind our first gym badge to snack for ourselves. Now that this run is going somewhere, I decided, you know what, normally I don't give nicknames in my runs, but I thought it would be fun to do a nickname theme this time around and give my Pokemon names once the luck-based part of the run is over. You can probably tell which anime I was binge watching at the time.
Fred Durst! Yeah!
There's also this thing where there are a few corpses that are just lying around you can pick up items from. Honestly, this just feels kind of unnecessary, especially with the detailed descriptions as to how they died, and it's just there for this game to be edgy and oh sweet, early leftovers! Once I arrive at Rustboro, I wipe the floor with Alicia, and then come face to face with this new guy named Gleiss. Is that how you pronounce that name? Who the hell names their child Line? Anyways, he only has one Pokemon, Face Leash. This is the very definition of a glass cannon. All attack, all speed, no defense. As soon as Baltoy lands a hit, it goes down instantly. I then grabbed the rest of my encounters and then split with Taylor on Route 116 and Whisburn Ruster Tunnel. From here, we fight a bunch of Groudon Demon Brock things and their army of Anners with whoever I have on my team. Afterwards, I slipped and fell straight into a fight against Pestilence, one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. This is normally the fight that makes Dustox amazing for the early game, but the possibility of not getting Dustox is also another reason why I chose Baltoy as a starter. Now she of course does have a Quillfish who does threaten my Baltoy, but because of my level cap, I'm able to evolve my Slackoff into Vigoroth, who's able to help my Baltoy take it down. Speaking of which, Vigoroth is also the best answer for normal girl Lauren, who upon defeat gives us the Bounce Badge, which grants us the ability to use Surf outside of battle, something that we need in order to progress the story as Mr. Briny is nowhere to be seen. Now, where exactly do you even get the HM for Surf in the first place? Does an NPC like Professor Birch give it to you? Do I have to go back to Pebblebrook City and find it there? Maybe it's in a gym that's currently locked and I need to somehow find a way to unlock it. Or maybe it's in one of those buildings in Rustbelt I don't have access to until now. Well, those possible locations would probably make the most sense. But the actual answer is really stupid. By having an empty slot in my party, I'm able to interact with a dead guy on Route 115 and take his level 4 Magikarp who just so happens to be holding the HM. Yeah, you're essentially forced to get this encounter to progress the story, but I'm not complaining. After evolving it and teaching it Surf, I head towards Dewford Town, and on my way I grabbed 2 of only 3 surfing encounters in the entire game with Quillfish on Route 105 and Wingull on Route 106. I wish I was joking, but those are the only surfing encounters throughout most of the game. Once I arrived at Dewford Town, I got a few items including the Old Rod, Silk Scarf, and TM31, which continues to move Ice Punch. Honestly, that's a pretty cool addition to Creator added, though I do wonder what move it replaced. You gotta be fucking kidding. After finding a few mandatory trainers, I now come face to face with gym leader Haruko Haruhara from the hit 2000s anime Fooly Cooly. She kindly asked me to leave and deal with a monster in the Solar Caverns, which I wasn't able to enter until I talked to her. That threat ended up being, no, not Charizard's best alt color in Ultimate, it's Dragon King Meteor, who battles you with not a Charizard, but a dragon. It's a pure dragon type Pokemon with Intimidate and slightly altered stats compared to Charizard. As you can see, this is the one boss where I have to skip the level cap for, since trying to do this with a cap is extremely luck dependent in an already luck dependent split of the game. Since most of the Pokemon around here don't have the stats to deal with it, and Gyarados only has Bite and Tackle by this point. So instead I have Haruko's level cap, which gives me a few evolutions, as well as Gyarados now learning Draco Fear, I'm just gonna call it Dragon Rage, in order to safely defeat it. With Meteor defeated, now I can fight Haruko, and she possesses a Mono Dark type team, which includes what's probably the first instance of an electric Dark type Luxray. At least I think it is? Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. Haruko's Luxray likes to spam Bulk Up, which while it doesn't buff any of its moves, it will make it bulky enough to sweep teams if the player is not careful, especially in conjunction with Haruko's healing items. So what's the solution? Well, prior to fighting Meteor, I captured a Makuhita in Solar Caverns, and this mon ends up becoming one of the most useful Pokemon throughout the entire game. Not only does it evolve before the level cap, but Hariyama has a rather unique buff for this game. A part normal typing, which gives it a ghost immunity and stab on both Fake Out and Smelling Salt at the cost of being weak to other fighting types, which actually isn't that big of a deal in this hack. With Hariyama in hand, I'm able to sweep a majority of her team up until she sends out this thing. This is a King Madio. It goes Dark type with Wonder Guard and every single stat at 1 with the exception of a maxed out speed. This thing only knows Splash, and the entire point of this thing's existence is to waste the player's time. Unfortunately for Haruko, I don't have time for this, so I switched it to my Zigzagoon and used Odor Sloop, allowing Hariyama to bypass King Madio's ghost typing and pop it with a single arm thrust, netting us the badge several turns early. With Haruko defeated, we get a hint that our brother was last seen in Slateport City, so now it's time to leave Dewford Town and head towards the beach on Route 109. Where, after looting a Firestone from a corpse, I now have to fight a series of brainwashed chefs who look scary, until you realize that they exclusively use the Munchlax and Curlia line, who can easily be handled by Hariyama and a Dark type like Poochyena respectively. Oh yeah, I haven't evolved Poochyena yet, so that'll be important later. After finding a few more chefs, I jump into this puddle and manage to get into a submarine called the SS Cangrejo, find God, fix their engine, and get transported back to Route 110 where I caught a Geodude. I guess I should also mention why I didn't evolve my Zigzagoon at Haruko's level cap. This is because I wanted to delay its evolution a tiny bit longer in order to get the move covered before the current level cap. Not only does it mean I can get a bunch of held items from wild Pokemon like berries and type boosting items, but it also means that I'm able to enter this random trainer fight and steal a black belt from his meta type. Funnily enough, the only way to get this items in the vanilla games were through rematches against Black Belt Knob on Route 115. Sounds familiar? Yeah, that's the dead guy we looted our Magikarp from not even a few minutes ago. So the fact that this random rich kid just happened to have one is really lucky, since this item is really useful for a few fights later down the line. When we arrive at Mauville City, we reach a point where we can't progress any further until we complete a mission for Glyce. You see, most of the city's remaining residents have taken shelter in New Mauville, and for some reason Glyce wants me, a random amnesiac he just met, to solve a murder case within the power plant turned bunker, which honestly is a pretty interesting puzzle to solve, albeit a bit janky. While doing so, I captured a Magnemite at the entrance and grabbed a Thunderstone at the crime scene. After a few minutes of me talking to NPCs and making sure I don't press yes on this dialogue button, I figured out that Watson is the one that committed the act of murder, and I have no choice but to fight him and lose to him on purpose. Trust me, I actually tried to see what would happen if I win, and nothing happened. And the only way out of Mauville City was through an escape route due to a script preventing me from going upstairs. Even then, I can't trigger the script that allows me to progress the story unless I actually fought him. So in order to activate the script that allows me to push this giant red button on the floor to turn off the generator buffing his team, I have to pretty much lose on purpose. Now that we're back at the Pokemon Center, I went ahead and prepared my team. While doing so, I evolved several of my mons, which includes the Magnemite I caught earlier. Not only can I evolve into a Magneton, but thanks to the Thunderstone, I can evolve it again into a Magnezone, one of only 2 Gen 4 evolutions brought over to Snakewood. Once I gather the team, I press the big red button and fight Watson for real this time. He's laughably easy, as most of his team gets swept by Hariyama with the help of Graveler and Magnezone. He even has a Raikou in his team, but it has such a pitiful learn set that it can barely do any damage to me. With Watson defeated, I now have access to Mauville City, which is a complete ghost town with nothing to do besides from grabbing the TM for Shockwave. I also have access to Route 117 where I can capture a Vulpix who's going to be my only fire type for a really long time. Once it learns Flamethrower, I evolve it into a Ninetales using the Firestone I grabbed earlier. Now, I can't progress further without Rock Smash, which I can't get until I rescue Glyce, who somehow got kidnapped while I was fucking around in New Mauville and is now stuck in the Isle of Calm. I round up a team in order to take care of this entire section, which includes my Quillfish, who can now evolve into a Quillshark. Basically, imagine if Tentacruel was a bit more offensive rather than defensive, and also had spikes. While I'm in the Isle of Calm, we meet up with the Deadly Seven for the first time. They don't do anything now, in fact they're just really annoying, but trust me, they're gonna be a huge pain in the ass later down the line. Fast forward a bit, and we eventually find Glyce stuck on a platform surrounded by orange soda, and in order to save him, we need to fight a doctor who has both his Pokédex as well as his entire team. Hunter immediately goes down to a Surf from Quillshark, which baits in Kadabra. I then switch into Poochyena, who, despite still not evolving, is capable of handling Kadabra since the only move it can hit us with is a weak knockoff. From here, Magnezone one-shots Quillfish, and Hariyama instantly kills Face Leech with a priority fake-out. I'm able to defeat the Doctor, obtain Watson's badge, which he happened to have, and escape with Glees back to Mauville City, now able to use Rock Smash. I now proceed to head north and get a few more encounters, starting with a Machop on Route 112, a Snorlax in Frigid Way, and after going through this tree maze and battling this trainer with an empty slot in my party, I'm able to nab a Gift Totodile. Evolving it into a Feraligatr, I use it in order to repel Manipula's Viper and Jagged Paths, who's now Poison Dark type in this game. Finally, in Famous Desert, I Rock Smash for an Anorith to see if it was worth going for over the regular encounters. Turns out, no, I completely forgot Armaldo's level up learn set is pretty bad. I probably should have went for Flygon instead. With my new encounters, the next few trainers are very easy to deal with, especially the next Elisa fight. I was also tasked by the nearby monks to take down the shiny Aerodactyl in order to progress the plot. I do so by simply running away from it since I already have my encounter here, but I guess this game decided to reward me for sparing its life. I'm not using it, but it's nice to have at least. I was also streaming this attempt, and the viewer decided to redeem both Hariyama and Slacking to also be shiny. Speaking of which, you, my fellow viewers, should also follow my Twitch account. I stream these nuzlocks and funny things happen sometimes. Whoa! What? Anyways, the monks thanked me for taking care of their dinosaur issue and asked me to go to the top of Mount Chimney where I have to fight the first 5 members of the Deadly 7. The only noteworthy ones are the 4th and 5th members who had their Pokemon over the level cap, but both are pretty easy to handle. I then went through a time tower thing for a trial of some sort, saw some ROM hacking fuckery, and fought the monk at the top of the tower who was easily swept by Survivor. Upon defeating him, he gives me, you guessed it, a yellow Vespa, allowing me to reach Route 113, now called Blighted Way. It has the same encounters as a vanilla game, so you can probably guess what I went for. Before I can reach Fall Arbor Town, I have to fight several severed heads. Their whole gimmick is that they all have eyes, which are zombified forms of Jinx. Without Aerodactyl, these are pretty annoying, but with the help of Pokemon like Ninetales and Armaldo, I'm able to make it past them just fine. Before we progress any further, we need to make sure that we take care of a few things since the next boss fight will cause us to be stuck in East Hoenn for a very long time. First, I went back to Famine Desert to defeat this troll several times in a row to grab the EXP share. Then, I went all the way back to the Isle of Calm where I want to maximize my chances at catching a static Beldum. Unfortunately, due to its constant recoil and low catch rates, I wasn't able to capture it. Sucks, but oh well. The last thing I did was capture 2 more encounters with Zangoose on Route 114 and Lunatone and Meteor Falls, who with a Sunstone I'm able to evolve into a Galactamon. This Pokemon has a pretty cool concept behind it. Both Lunatone and Solrock can evolve into this Pokemon with the exact opposite stone, and this evolution combines the best stats for both Pokemon at the cost of slightly slower speed. With everything prepared, it's time to head towards the bottom of Meteor Falls where we find out that Alicia is actually War, one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and she's going to kill me. Because of the level cap rule I implemented for this challenge, this is actually the first major fight in this game as she's the first trainer with a full team of 6. Also, no, that's not a Zoroark in her team. It's the new Pokemon called Gigawolf, and its Mightyana's evolution was a bright recreation of Zoroark's reveal from the March 2010 issue of CoroCoro magazine. It's a mixed attacker with a rather bizarre learn set of moves like Mach Punch and E-Speed, along with some other bizarre choices such as the inability to learn its strongest stab move without either the movie learner or delaying its evolution. No, that's not why my Poochyena hasn't evolved yet, we'll get there later. She leads with Sableye, who I easily defeat by spamming Surf with Quillshark, who immediately baits in Gigawolf. Her Gigawolf has Sword Stance, so my plan here was to use Hariyama's normal typing and Gyarados' flying typing to switch back and forth between EQ and Shadow Swipe until its attack is low enough to where it starts spamming Crunch. As you can see from the footage, I wasn't paying attention, and because of that, both Hariyama and Slacking are crippled by the time Gigawolf goes down. It also doesn't help that she sent her Ghost Fighting type Bayna, who I have absolutely no plan for because I completely forgot that it was on her team. Look, this was the last fight of a 4-hour long stream, cut me some slack. I ended up risking both paralysis and a critical hit in order for Quillshark to fix my mistake. Gengar is next, who is unable to do any damage to my Skarmory, who is able to stall it out and bait in Weavile, the only other Gen 4 evolution available in this ROM hack. Magnezone was able to 1v1 it and thankfully had enough health to take care of Dusclops, narrowly escaping defeat. With War defeated, the 3 Horsemen of the Apocalypse become so powerless that it catches the attention of the 4th Horseman of the Apocalypse, as the Grim Reaper itself sends them back to where they came from. Of course, I myself don't want to be killed, so I jump to the nearest body of water and somehow made my way back to the SS Cangrejo, where I have to solve another puzzle. In order to solve this one, I need to catch a Magnemite to restore power to a nearby elevator, and catch a Ditto in order to unlock a nearby teleporter. The former is a dupe thanks to Magnezone, so upon powering up the elevator, I repelled it for 1% Sableye before capturing Ditto and unlocking a teleporter, allowing myself to get sent to Fortree City. Or at the very least, just the Pokemon Center. I would need to reach the other side of the city if I want to access everything else. From this point forward, we'll be battling zombies with much stronger zombie Pokemon, though they aren't as threatening as I can easily bring a team that counters all of them. As a result, most of them are pushovers. That is, until we reach this game's equivalent of the Weather Institute, and battle a very scary fight against Battle Zombie Mike. When you come face to face against Mike, he will only send out one single Pokemon. This, my friends, is Gorlax, a stronger zombified version of Vanilla Snorlax, one of the few instances where a zombified Pokemon is actually stronger than the vanilla counterpart. This can be scary if you aren't prepared, especially since it can trap you with Block, wear you down with Body Slam, and it can even heal itself with Rest. Fortunately for me, I happen to have a little cheap trick up my sleeve to take care of this Pokemon. Please laugh. One of the main reasons why I decided to nab Sableye is because having a ghost type this early in the game means I get into situations where a Pokemon like Gorlass can't hit me. This means that my little gremlin is able to come in and smash this thing's head with a rock, all while Mike here does nothing about it. After that, we fight the latter half of the Deadly 7, which includes the only instance where Glalie is used before being permanently placed in the pit zone with the others. A few more fights later, and we now have access to some new encounters with Tropius on Route 119, Gloom on Route 123, who immediately evolves into a Blossom, and Carvanha on Route 118 with the newly acquired Good Rod. On my way to Mount Pyre, we fight these rather weird trainers from another dimension where they exclusively use creatures called Denjus. These are from a Japanese monster fighting game known in America for a bootleg re-release called Pokemon Diamond and Jade. I'm not gonna waste a lot of time, so let's rapid fire all of them. Grass type Armadillo usually gets countered by Ninetales or Tropius. Flying type Speed Boost Tornado does no damage to Golem or Magnezone. Rock type creature disintegrates upon seeing a water type. Another grass type that gets countered by Ninetales or Tropius. Ghost Dark type does very little damage and is usually countered by Golem or Magnezone. Water type is kind of annoying to deal with, but Quill Shark, Magnezone, and whatever grass type I have can handle it without too much issue. Alright, that's all of them. Along the way, I captured a Whalmer on Route 122 and reached the very top of Mount Pyre where I meet a new villain called Temulant, who's honestly just here because every other villain was written out of the story. He's very easy, and with his defeat, all the Denjus go back to their dimensions and are never mentioned again outside of an offhanded comment the next time we fight this guy. With that plotline out of the way, I can finally advance to Route 121 where I capture a Duskull and find the Madio Cave, and this place is the reason why I've delayed Poochyana's evolution for so long. Specifically, I've delayed its evolution until it learns to move Thief at level 45, which will allow me to steal evolutionary stones from the ghost type Madios. Why is this important now, you may ask? Remember the egg that Professor Birch gave us at the very beginning of the game? Well, now is the time that we finally make use of it. I evolved Mystery Egg into Secret Egg, and then evolve it again into Hyper Egg. Along the way, it gained several moves that, make sense for an egg to learn. You got Harden, Egg Bomb, Soft Boiled, Eruption, Water Spout, Ice Beam via TM. Oh, and that's not all. Once it evolves into Hyper Egg, it can evolve one more time into, you guessed it, the Legendary Beast as well as Celebi and a buffed version of Unknown. Now the best thing we could do with this egg is to actually not evolve it at all, since Hyper Egg is basically just Blissey if Game Freak understood game balance, though that option's a bit lame so I didn't consider it. On the other end of the power scale, we can eliminate Unknown and Celebi from our options since both of them don't provide much in a game filled with enemies that can hit them with super effective damage, and despite the buffs that were given to Unknown, it was never given a boost that changed, so it suffers from a rather unfortunate case of... So that leaves us with the 3 legendary beasts. Now, you can have a Raikou with the most whack-ass moveset you've ever seen in your entire life. However, there are no Madios that hold a Thunderstone, and the only Thunderstone available in the entire game was already used on Magnezone, so that won't do. There's also Entei, who received Stab Eruption a generation earlier and covers against Rock and Ground types, I guess. But also the Madio that holds the Firestone 5% of the time has a 1% chance of showing up, so fuck that. Instead, I decided to go for an even more defensive approach by stealing a Water Stone in order to evolve my egg into the most broken non-fake mon in the entire game, Suicune. But not just any Suicune, no. Suicune with instant recovery. This Pokemon will be the answer to the majority of OP fake mons that I will be encountering throughout the entire late game. I then go through Route 120 where I fight a few witches whose dialogue and names make me go, yep, this sure is a ROM hack made by a 16-year-old in 2010. Along the way, I was able to get my last surf encounter with Grayville, which is one of the few zombie Pokemon I can actually capture. Much like Gorlax, a Zombaro has a bit of a stat buff, becoming a lot more of a defensive Pokemon while still having a chance at huge power, which is the ability I ended up getting. Once I beat all of the witches, I'm able to access the other side of Fort Tree, buy a puppy, and enter the Hoenn University of Film, allowing me to use a PC that isn't at the Weather Institute. I then went back to Route 120 during the average winter afternoon in Canada and arrived back at the Madio Cave. After creating a map using the advanced map tool as a reference, I was able to grab a Master Ball, the TM for Ice Beam, and with a very specific path, I gained access to a small section of Victor Road, allowing me to capture an Aeron. Now, in order to progress the story, I'm supposed to find Winona's brother, Veracity, and I have to do so while finding a few trainers along the way. 2 of these trainers have Milotic on their team, who's part Psychic type in this game, and is extremely dangerous if you aren't careful. This is partially the reason why I went for Blossom over Vileplume when evolving Gloom. Once I finally find him, he sends me on a mission to take care of a rogue AI camera that has been causing problems for the university. I take care of this said problem by simply stealing it for myself using my Master Ball. This is X32763. Going forward, I'm going to be referring to this thing as Camera. This Pokemon acts as a sort of side grade to Magnezone, trading high special attack and defense in exchange for more HP, a higher attack stat that it will never use, and a bit more speed along with the Levitate ability. Camera also has a signature move called Data Stream, which is supposed to be an electric type E-Speed, but because Cutlery only applied the effect bite to it and not the actual priority, it's just a stronger Thunderbolt with no secondary effect. After capturing the Camera, I prepare my team to face the zombified Winona who's been trapped inside her gym by her brother the entire time. She leads Dirtgirl who gets O-killed by Golem. This baits in Earthquake from Iron Reaper, so I switch into Skarmory in order to make sure that Ninetales can safely switch in and finish it off. Skarmory is also able to handle Grim Reaper pretty easily as it can't do any damage to it. And then comes Scar Lugia. Yup, that's a straight up a Lugia alright. It's not buffed or anything, but it's still a threat. This thing has the potential to max out its defense with Cosmic Power, and we're going to need to use Camera to handle it since Lugia has Earthquake, which obliterates Magnezone. Normally this would take a while, but thankfully one of Camera's discharges crits allow me to end the fight a lot earlier than usual. Normally this would be over, but Veracity here is a complete bitch baby and is not a fan of me killing his zombified sister and fights me immediately. Well, time for Suicune to shine, I guess. Surf destroys 5 of Veracity's fire types before he sends out Ho-Oh, which is going to be our first victim of this Suicune's heal stalling. With its bulk, Suicune's able to easily shrug off damage and heal back up with Soft Boiled. Its pressure ability ensures that any PP stalling strats go by as fast as possible, and Suicune will always be holding a Lepa Berry in order to replenish any Soft Boiled PP. Is this a cheap strategy? Sure, but trust me, in some cases it's necessary for some of the later fights. After a few more turns, Veracity goes down, allowing me to put Winona out of her misery and finally obtaining the 5th gym badge. Now it's time to head towards Lilico City. Along the way, I catch a Zubat in Rainy Cave and found this trainer who told me that they stick a bunch of Pokemon into a Frankenstein monster. Not entirely sure what they're talking about. Oh! Huh, guess they weren't lying. Its stats are incredibly high, however due to its pure disease type, it has no stab on any of its moves, so ultimately it was stalled out by Suicune. Now comes the most infamous part of Pokemon Snakewood, the Deadly 7 1v10. Once I step within range of the Deadly 7, I must fight them all back to back. 6 of my Pokemon versus 29. The first 2 members go down relatively easily, but then comes the 3rd member, whose Kenchiras from earlier evolves into one of the most bullshit fake mons in the entire game. This is Kenchukyo, a fighting flying type Pokemon with the same attack stat as Slacking, the same speed stat as Ninjask. Oh, and it also has speed boost because fuck you. Oh, it gets worse from here. Due to its level up learned set, this Kenchukyo has Belly Drum in its arsenal, meaning that I can't just PP stall with Suicune. Oh, did I also mention there's 2 of them? So what now? How do I beat this fight deathless? Do I just let Suicune spam Ice Beam and pray? Do I get my own Kenchukyo on Mount Pyre for a 1v2 Ditto matchup? Actually, no, none of that. Why? Because this is a deathlocke, and under the rules, I can choose my own encounters. This is Normadio. I got this thing in the Madio Cave prior to getting the Waterstone thanks to Milo Dusclops, and it counts as a part of my Mount Pyre encounter. Its stats are nothing to write home about, and its ability isn't any better. But there's one reason as to why I caught this thing over something like Gengar, Metacham, or even my own Kenchukyo. It has one of the best type combinations I can ask for. Ghost, Normal. This type gives me 3 immunities to Normal, Fighting, and Ghost, and it just so happens that this Kenchukyo's moveset only consists of moves that Normadio is immune to, allowing me to essentially skip this fight entirely. Thankfully, the next few fights are a lot easier, though the Medical Trainer was a bit annoying since my only answer was Eruption Suicune. The 8th member is also worth knowing because he evolved his 3 Calpies into Tauros, Miltank, and a 3rd new evolution, Ram Shaker. This is a normal Psychic type alternate evolution of Calpy with decent stats and the ability Huge Power, which the NPC always has. Fortunately, none of its moves can hit Sableye, so this trainer is the least of my worries. For now at least. After 2 more battles, the Deadly 7 finally go down. However, we have a new problem. Suicune has overleveled, so we can't use it until we get our next badge, which is going to make things a bit tough. Chloe's next, though since her level cap was skipped to make the gauntlet a lot more manageable, she ended up being very easy. After that, we are transported to Fort Draco, this game's equivalent of Moss Deep City, and we can't leave until we beat Meteor again, who is now the next gym leader. Oh yeah, we formed an alliance with the dragon because we saved his daughter or something. Yeah, I kind of lost the plot. Hell, I forgot to even mention that Glyce is a villain now. Why? I don't fucking know, he's evil now, I guess. While I was there, I grabbed the super rod and gave this dragon the puppy I bought back in Fortree. I walked out, and then I walked back inside, and next thing you know, I now have a Growlithe. I could have gotten this in the training area as well, but this takes less time. So now I have to plan for the second meteor fight. Since Suicune is overleveled and I don't have a Flygon in my box, this fight is going to be a bit tougher. Now I do have the option to evolve my Linoon into a Dragoon, a normal dragon type with an extremely high special defense. But there's a problem with this. Not only is Outrage Dragoon's only Dragon Stab, but the creator of this hack also decided to make this evolution the ultimate HM Pokemon, meaning it can't learn anything via TM upon evolving. The only moves it can learn outside of its level up learn set is quite literally every single HM in the game. So our best options here are whatever else is in our PC box. Meteor leads to first dragon, who immediately burns Slacking as I yawn it. This puts Slacking out of commission as it forces us to use Feraligatr in order to take it down. Kingdra comes in next, and this is when the Switch AI becomes a bit bizarre. You see, Blossom hardwalls Kingdra due to it only having Hydro Pump, Twister, and the iconic Bubble. So Meteor tends to switch Kingdra out whenever it feels like it. The level 50 Dragon shows up and I send out Galactamon. This is the moment that I realize that despite being a gym leader, Meteor has random AI, meaning that it will go for moves like Wing Attack on a rock type, allowing me to take it down with plenty of HP left. Kingdra comes back in, and with a little bit of patience, I predicted a switch into the level 48 Dragon as Blossom uses Sleep Powder, allowing Gyarados enough time to slowly kill it. Kingdra comes back in, and it is here that I make a misplay by completely forgetting to give a Lepa Berry to Blossom, which means that I am out of Giga Drain PP. It also didn't help that Meteor saved his last full restore, which puts me in a really tight spot and leaves me with no choice but to lock in with Petal Dance and hope that Kingdra stays in this time. Unfortunately, it switches on the second turn as the final dragon shows up. Fortunately, it goes for Slash rather than Wing Attack or Flamethrower, and Blossom gets Fatigue, allowing me to switch it out safely and defeat the last dragon with Galactamon and Feraligatr. Kingdra comes back in and turn 1 wakes up because of course it does, but because I still have Sleep Power PP left, I put it back to sleep and this time take it down with Slashes from Feraligatr. His last Pokemon, Altaria, gets hardwalled by Golem, winning me the 6th badge as well as the ability to use Fly outside of battle. We then receive a call from Professor Birch stating that the mastermind of the apocalypse has been spotted taking over the abandoned Little Coast City department store. But before we take care of that, I use my Super Rod to get 2 more encounters with Horsey on Route 134 and Staryu in Little Coast City. We also gained 2 more evolutions thanks to the new level cap, as Seviper evolves into Savicious at level 55, which, yeah, that sure is a Seviper evolution alright. Likewise, Zangoose also receives a new evolution at level 55, as it turns blue and receives a katana and a cool pair of sunglasses. Zango is a normal fighting type evolution who also acts as a more offensive side grade to Hariyama. Notably, this is the only fighting type Pokemon in the game that naturally knows Brick Break via level up, which would have been very useful for any of my other fighting types. Machamp. Now we must climb the Lily Cove department store, but before doing so, we must go back to New Mauville and pre-paralyze Dusclops. Because if I did so right before the fight where Dusclops needs to be pre-status, the trainers would just reset themselves and now have to fight them again. So the first major fight here is our last battle against Glyce, and oh my god, dude, you have like 3 other Pokemon, what happened to your team? So the first major fight here is a rematch with Temulance, who took one good look at his Denju team, tossed it in the trash, and pulled a new team out of his ass. He's severely underleveled though, so he goes down very easily. Finally, we come face to face with the mastermind of the zombie apocalypse, Senex, and his 3 extremely powerful legendary Fakemons. Termur, a slow but extremely powerful Levitate Mon who does massive damage with a high attack and special attack at the cost of having no stab on any of its moves. If this was an actual Pokemon, it would have tied with Mega Heracross for the 2nd highest attack stat in the entire series. Lucozamon, a fast Dragon Ice type Pokemon with 112 in every stat except for defense and special defense. Finally, Shatteru, basically Normadia with better stats and an additional immunity thanks to Levitate. Also yeah, this is yet another Pokemon with the same attack stat as Slaking without any of the drawbacks. The fight starts off very easily as for some reason Senex gave Termur by far the worst moveset imaginable, making it very easy to wall with a pre-paralyzed Dusclops. Shatteru comes in next and I have to send in Aggron who should be able to take most of its moves. I switch in on its signature move Pulsar followed by a Future Sight into a Rock Tomb Miss. During this battle, I found out that Pulsar goes to Protect, which I later found out was because it replaced Doom Desire, which also has this property. Being in a tough spot at the moment, I need to make sure that Aggron doesn't take the incoming Future Sight, so I switch into Magnet Zone to tank the attack before switching back to Aggron to finish it off. Last is Luca Zamon, who I'm thankfully able to wall with Suicune and allow me to win the fight. After some plot related stuff, I'm told that in order to better prepare myself for the finale, I must gain some strength by entering the Elite Four. Yes, we're doing the Elite Four before the game story ends. I proceeded to get my last 2 encounters in Relicanth Underwater and Luftis in Evergrande City before defeating a majority of trainers in Victory Road and grabbing the TM for Psychic, who I immediately teach to Starmie. However, before leaving this place, I must battle Temlins one last time, whose team is similar to the last time I fought him, except now he has a level cap. His lead Gyarados goes down very easily to camera, and I'm able to heal block Hariyama with Starmie before OHKOing it and its newly added Rhydon with Surf. Machamp is next and I decided to preserve HP on Starmie, instead using Gyarados in order to take it down. Last is Entei, who's actually scary this time since it has Calm Mind and outspeeds Suicune. Unfortunately, due to Temulin saving his last full restore, I decided that I need to bring Starmie to outspeed and kill it, but I'm dead to a crit here. Okay, never punished. Now I can exit Victory Road and take on the Elite Four. This Elite Four is rather infamous for having the biggest gap in levels between the first Elite Four member and the champion I've ever seen in a ROM hack, as well as both the last member and the champion having an extremely stacked team with a bunch of fake mods including Radiant Orange, a slow fire dark type of Intimidate, and Rock Lobster, a slow rock dragon physical tank with a high attack stat. I'll be level capping at the same level as the 4th member's Ace, which negates the first problem, and I come up with a team that can easily take down the Elite Four. First is Caitlyn, a fighting type specialist, and most of her team gets one-tapped by Starmie. Her lead Hariyama is at an extremely low level of 54, which allows Starmie to vaporize it. She then sends in Blaziken because for some reason Blaze Kick was replaced by a base 120 bug type move that is otherwise unused. She then sends in her ace Kenchukyo, and unlike the last time we fought this thing, it has no setup moves to worry about. However, it's still a threat because Suicune upon switching into any move is dead to a crit cross chop. So instead what I do is I switch into Skarmory on either Shadow Swipe or Air Cutter, and then switch into Sableye on cross chop, and then repeat the process until it's out of cross chop PP. As you can see from my poorly made Twitch layout and this notepad I have here on the screen, I am fully prepared to PP stall other members of the Elite Four in order to get past this E4 Deathless. Once it's out of cross-chop PP, I can safely switch into Suicune to tank, heal, and slowly take down Kenchukyo. With that resprite out of the way, she sends in her Breloom, and I know that Starmie can tank a crit Giga Drain and is also holding a Chesto in case of Spore, allowing me to safely switch in and sweep the rest of her team without too much issue. Next is another new E4 member named Benny, who's a flying type specialist. He's very easy to deal with as the majority of his team is taken care of by Skarmory, Starmie, and Golem. He also has Kenchukyo as his ace, but this one's even easier to PP stall since half of his moveset consists of the Elemental Punches, which comes off of his base 17 special attack, which, mind you, is 3 points lower than Caterpie's special attack. Next is Glacia? Okay, I guess I couldn't think of another character to fill this spot. Much like the vanilla game, she's very easy to handle due to both Zangol and Starmie. This is one of the few battles where the black belt I stole earlier comes into play, as it allows Zangol to KO Pokemon that would have otherwise been in range. Her Articuno honestly would have been a threat to my team if it wasn't for the fact that Blizzard is the only move it can hit me with, and even then it would rather just spam Mind Reader until it eventually goes down. Next is the first serious fight in the Elite Four, Indigo, an electric type specialist. He leads Luxray, who Zangol is able to OHKO thanks to Black Belt boosted Brick Break. This immediately baits in Zapdos, which is the main reason why I brought Golem. My main goal here is to pretty much try to defeat it with both Rock Blast and Rock Throw since Zapdos has both the pressure ability as well as the move Detect. In this fight, I get extremely unlucky with Detect spam as well as both Rock Blast and Rock Throw missing multiple times, so by the time I actually defeat Zapdos, not only did I have no PP on any of my Rock type moves, but my HP is so low that I actually died to a crit Swift from the incoming Raichu. My solution here was the same strat I was originally going to do, except way slower. I've equipped Suicune with leftovers in order to pivot back and forth between an electric type move and a non-electric type move. Once it's out of PP for one of those moves, I use either Suicune or Golem to finish him off depending on which move runs out of PP first. Next is Ampharos, who was originally planned to be the only PP stall in this fight since it has Ice Beam. Once it runs out of Ice Beam PP, Ampharos is unable to touch Golem, allowing me to take it down with Earthquake. Last is Striker, who has to be dealt with the same way as the others, except this thing also has double team. Now once it's out of Flame Wheel PP, my plan was to simply wait until it's out of Discharge PP in order for Sableye to safely switch in and attempt to use Foresight to negate its evasion boost. Either that, or I fully PP stall it. Out of a whim, I used Earthquake at the very first turn and ran out of Flame Wheel, and somehow landed through max evasion. Eat shit, Striker! Finally, we've reached the champion. Hajike King Fanglei? Yeah, I do not know what this is supposed to be a reference to. Anyways, he leads Hitmontop, who's easily taken care of by Starmie. This baits in Mega Horn from Buffalon, which is one of the main reasons why I brought Zangul over Hariyama. Even without the lucky miss, I'm able to outspeed into a KO with Brick Break, compared to Hariyama, who had to risk a crit due to Vile Throw's negative priority. Ram Shaker is next, and these Pokemon know a move called Bright Idea. Despite this, they have absolutely no clue what to do when a funny Gem Goblin repeatedly smashes their heads with a boulder. Fourth is Rock Lobster, who does a ton of damage with Rock Slide and Dragon Claw, but fortunately Suicune and its bulk and recovery is able to stay in long enough to take it down with a few surfs. Radiant is sent in next, but due to its extremely low special bulk, this thing goes down easily to a single surf. Finally, the champion sends in a Toxic Stall in King Madio, and much like the last time I fought this Pokemon, I knew exactly what to do. I send in Sableye to land a Foresight, negating its Ghost typing and allowing me to pop the bubble with a single Rock Smash. And with that, the Elite Four has been conquered and I'm now the new champion of the Hoenn region. But something feels off. Despite me being the champion, the story isn't really finished yet. I knew from the very beginning of this challenge that I, for some reason, put myself through, that this isn't going to end here. That old man is still floating around, and if I want to beat this game properly, I must defeat him once and for all. And so, we have a new goal. Stop Senex and put an end to this apocalypse. With that, the deathlock continues. What? Oh, that's right, I'm homeless. Once I exit the Pokemon League, I get a call from Professor Birch telling me to investigate the Little Cove sewers. While I was there, I participated in a side quest that will allow me to get my next encounter. By accepting this quest, I now have access to the abandoned ship, which was otherwise inaccessible. After going through a somewhat broken room key puzzle, I'm able to find the odd keystone. Along the way, I grab my second Ice Beam TM as well as the Heat Badge? They couldn't make an 8th gym leader? Why was this in a random trash can? Anyways, I go back to the sewers and give the odd keystone to this gentleman, which allows me to capture Spiritomb as my Little Cove sewers encounter. Now at this point, I have to fight yet another battle that I'm meant to lose with a team consisting of a level 100 Grim Reaper and a level 100 Gorlax. Granted, you can win this fight and have the same result happen unlike the Watson fight, but I end up deciding that, much like that impossible fight, this one will not count as a part of the deathlock. However, instead of intentionally losing again, I thought it'd be more fun to skip the fight entirely. By going to Evergrande City and using the dive spot there, I can go back and forth between the spawn point and somehow end up in Route 128, where this underwater cave was originally located. Now all I need to do is make it to Pacific Lock the old-fashioned way and talk to the scientist to continue the story the same way we would have if we went down the intended path. Before the fight against the 7th and final gym leader, we're going to get our last few encounters for this run. Now if you ever played any of the Hoenn games, whether it's Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, or the remix, you probably know where this is going. I added Relicanth from the Wailord to my party and evolved my Linoone into a Dragoon just so I don't have to grab the TM for Dig. I go to Route 133 and find a secret cave to activate the chambers that usually house the Reggie trios. However, instead of getting the Reggies, we instead get a bunch of Goobers. It's him. There he is. So, I'm able to capture Mudkip and Torchic pretty easily. However, Trico is a different story because its puzzle requires the HM for strength, which requires me to gain access to Gym Island, which is a location that I'm not supposed to reach until after the game's story ends. But there's nothing that's stopping me from just going there right now, so I go back to Dewford Town and dive in this specific spot to capture Rock Lobster. Once I catch it, I grab the hard disk solo it was playing and play it on this random rock on Route 103 to get some tickets. Then, I hand over these tickets to this lady on Route 119 so I can ride her boat to Gym Island. As soon as I arrive, I'm able to retrieve the HM for strength from a character who I'm not supposed to know is still alive by this point in the story. With that in hand, I can finally capture Trico, who I can definitely make some good use out of for the next boss fight. Okay, Blossom, get out of the piston, you have one more job to do. So now it's time to fight the final gym leader of Pokemon Snakewood, Esau. Unlike the other gym leaders that we fought so far, he doesn't really have a type specialty. Rather, he just has a slightly balanced team with Hyper Beam on all of his Pokemon. He leads Verlisify, who can't hit our newly acquired Spiritomb, netting us a free kill after a few turns. This based in Basculin, who's the Pokemon I need a Sceptile for. Fortunately, the AI doesn't see a kill with Hyper Beam, so it never went for the move, allowing Blossom to safely kill it without risking a crit. Next is Kenchukyo, and like always, I use Skarmory and a Ghost type to get rid of Cross Chop PP before Suicune 2-shots it with Ice Beam. From there, Camera sweeps since Gyarados can't touch it and Spiritomb goes down with 2 data streams. With Esau defeated, I'm told to head towards the abandoned mines, which is the only way towards what remains of Zootopolis City. In the mines, we'll have to face the Deadly Seven one last time with one less member since their leader died to Senex, allegedly speaking. You can fight everyone except for the last one in any order, and while I fought them chronologically, only 2 of them actually pose a threat to my run, so I'll just go over the easy ones very quickly. The Blossom Vileplume trainer is easy with Arcanine and Crobat. The Kenchukyo trainer did not learn a single thing from the last time I fought him. The Flygon team is swept by Starmie, who now has Ice Beam. The Crobat trainer is built like Drayano before he discovered Covered, so it's walled by a Steel type. The Medical trainer was actually kind of threatening, but I landed 2 Hydro Eruption, so that was fine. The Ampharos trainer was swept by Swampert, and finally, the Dragonite trainer you have to fight at the end is swept by Starmie. Alright, now time for the real threats. At first, you'd think the Steelix trainer would be as easy as bringing a Water type, but this guy has a single trick up his sleeve. He somehow evolves his Steelixes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Diamond Dix, a Steel Dragon type Pokemon that evolves from Steelix after gaining Max Beauty, something that's completely impossible for the trainer to obtain due to Pokeblocks not being available in this game. This thing has very high defense stats, as well as incredible stats across the board with the exception of special attack and its 1 speed stat. This fight ends up being an absolute slog, since this trainer has 3 of these bastards and a few full restores. Suicune was able to handle the first 2, at least all while eating an entire buffet worth of eggs. And Starmie was able to step in and finish the 3rd one. This fight lasted 5 minutes. By far, the most threatening member of the Deadly Seven is the Tauros and Miltank trainer. Originally, my plan was to grab the Whiter found in the mines and give it to Machamp in order to handle the lead Tauros. But the Machamp I ended up catching was timid in nature, so I had to hatch a new plan. Because this trainer has Smart AI, I can actually stall out the first Tauros using Aggron and Skarmory until it's out of Earthquakes, allowing Aggron to safely finish it off. Miltank comes in next and I bait out Skullbreaker with a Ghost type in order to safely bring Suicune in and kill it, baiting in the second Miltank who also goes down to Suicune. Ramshaker comes in next, who can boost his defense with Cosmic Power. I bring in Spiritomb and set up Curse to put it on a timer, and then immediately made that setup pointless with a crit Feint attack. Last is the second Tauros, who I can switch Skarmory into, and here I decided to not switch to Aggron and just go for a random move. Besides, it can only hit me with Return, so there's no need to switch to Aggron and I'm sorry, what? Okay, no joke, my actual plan was to switch to Aggron and finish it off from there. I guess Zero Friendship Return did that little damage? Well, I guess that's one way to end my fight with the Deadly Seven, because with that, I no longer have to deal with them ever again and can continue further into the mines. A few movie references later, and we make it to the end of the mines where the scientist we met in Pacific Town greets us. Before we exit the mines, he provides me with a Toxicroak, which is apparently my character's actual starter prior to them suffering from amnesia.
I don't understand. Why are you blue?
This Toxicroak arrives way too late to ever be useful, so even though I have to grab it in order to progress the plot, he's staying in the PC. Now it's time to prepare for the final stretch of the game, Necropolis, a multi-level gauntlet where we have to solve multiple puzzles and fight several hard trainers, ranging from zombies to edgy dudes named after various cowboys. Once we get past them, we reach Senex, the final boss of this ROM hack. So, I prepared a team capable of handling most of these trainers. Suicune, Magnezone, Spiritomb, Arcanine, Slaking, and Aggron. Once I start this final stretch of the game, there's no turning back. So prior to starting this gauntlet, I made sure to teach Shadow Ball to Spiritomb, Return to Slaking, and Mirror Code to Magnezone. Let's end this. So right off the bat, we need to solve not one, but 2 very long ledge puzzles. I used a map I found on Google in order to solve both of these puzzles because if I make a mistake here, I could be forced to fight a few optional trainers I really do not want to battle. Our first fight is against Severed Head Mitchell, who has a few IIs that Arcanine has very little trouble handling. For the second fight against Headslinger Clint, I have to face the first of 3 fake mods exclusive to Necropolis, Anti-Spiral, who's just evil Zangbull, same stats and everything. All 3 fake mods use their level up learn set, which makes Anti-Spiral a pushover since it has no moves to hit Spiritomb with. Then we go through what's probably the worst puzzle in any ROM hack. Seriously, how am I supposed to know the path to this mage without looking it up? Before we come face to face with Headslinger Tex, who has the other two fake ones. First is Shinigami, which is literally just Gallade with plus 10 in every stat. This Pokemon's not that hard to deal with since Suicune can easily wall it, especially once it starts using Crash, which does very little damage. But then comes the most threatening of the three fake mons in Necropolis, Stitcher, a zombie Pokemon that combines the best stats between Latias and Latios. These things are a pain in the ass to deal with thanks to their diverse movesets and high stats, and this one in particular is the strongest variant out of all the Stitchers in this split. Not only is it the highest leveled one that we have to face, but it's the only one that we have to fight that has perfect IVs. My plan for these guys is to use Magnezone's bulk in order to do as much damage as I can with Mirror Coat, before switching into Slacking for the kill. However, during this fight, not only was my Slacking slower, but the Stitcher ends up randomly selecting Ice Beam and freezes my Slacking right as I was about to kill it. This puts me in a really bad spot and I have to switch into Spiritomb on a random move. After doing some calculations, I decided to stay in and use Shadow Ball for the kill. If it goes for Thunderbolt or Ice Beam, then I'm fine as long as I dodge status. However, if it Dragon Claws here, then this entire run dies to a crit. Alright, with that scary fight done and over with, we can climb upstairs and jump towards this giant puddle of water and end up in a brand new area. This is the part of the ROM hack where the creator ran out of ideas. A completely unrelated side quest, a more botched version of Lieutenant Surge's puzzle, and finally, Marvel's What If the questions from Trick House Puzzle Room 5 were created by the people who made those impossible quiz flash games you saw Markiplier play.
Who the hell?
That one's not even a puzzle, by the way, that's just trial and error if you don't have a guide. This section is basically filler that's smack dab in between what I just went through and the final few trainers leading up to Senex. Despite this, there is one thing that is quite useful in this area. You see, in the very last room before the final boss, there are two doors you can go through. The one on the right leads you directly towards Senex, while the door on the left is a troll room that sends you directly towards the second ledge puzzle. Because of this, the flag that forces you to enter the filler room is never removed to prevent the player from soft locking themselves. There's also a PC that's available for the player to use midway through this section. I take full advantage of this by having my first team handle the first part of Necropolis, and then switching to a second team to take care of the few remaining zombies that need to be handled. Once I beat the final mandatory trainer, I can go back to the puddle room and surf to the other side to re-trigger the flag. This will allow me to go back to this place and access a PC one last time. With this, I can grab my third and final team made specifically for the Senex fight and level up to the final level cap. With that, it's time to face Senex once and for all. I bring Hariyama as my lead against his Face Leech, who instantly dies to a fake out. This brings in Termer, and unlike the last time we fought this thing, Senex actually gave it a rather serious moveset that I have to watch out for. I switch into camera on an Earthquake and try to do some chip damage. I get pretty lucky here as my first status stream crits, which is the right amount of damage that I need for my setup as Termer freezes my camera with Ice Beam. I then switch into Hariyama for some chip damage to negate its Shell Bell recovery and switch into Slacking. With that, Senex's biggest threat is in the right position for me to take it down. At Termer's current HP, it's too high for Senex to heal with a full restore, and a Silk Scarf booster return from Slacking is just enough to one-shot it. Next is Luca Zamon, who's not a huge threat since Suicune can easily stall it out before taking it down. The last Pokemon in our way of victory is Shatteru. It's time for our final PP stall as I send out Harvest, our Zigzagoon, the one that significantly helped us throughout our luck-based early game and then did practically nothing for the rest of the game, is now coming back for one last battle. Not only does Dragoon negate Shadow Punches, but because of its extremely high special defense stat, it's capable of handling the Dark-type Pulsar without too much issue. With that, I'm able to switch back and forth between Harvest and Spiritomb until it's fully out of PP. Though, once I finish my PP stall, I noticed one mistake. I forgot to teach Slacking Thunderbolt in order to hit Shatteru, or any move for that matter. And I also forgot to teach Toxic to any of my mons. Topped off with Senex saving his final full restore, this went from an easy victory to a complete steer as most of my Pokemon are out of commission. So I'll need to do a bit of a risky strat where I use Spiritomb to chip it down and then finish it off with Suicune. Except Spiritomb clutches up once again and lands a critical feint attack to finish off Shatteru. With that, we finally beat Senex, saving the Hoenn region and beating Pokemon Snakewood without losing a single Pokemon. Honestly, this was an interesting experience. It was nice being able to try out different strategies playing around the Gen 3 level up movesets, as well as the limited amount of TMs and IMs I had to deal with on top of the rather powerful fake mons I have to endure. Though, honestly, most of this challenge would have been a lot worse if it wasn't for my omelet-eating water dog. Maybe Game Freak should give Squeak and Recover for the funnies. Well, it'll definitely help it competitively, I can tell you that. If you like this video, please consider subscribing for more content and follow my Twitch account for more challenges like this one. Also, sorry if this video took forever to make. I had like a ton of stuff IRL I had to deal with. I would also like to know what other people in the comments think about Snakewood. I honestly think this is one of the few ROM hacks that would benefit greatly from a remake with all the tools that we have these days compared to the ROM hacking scene in the early 2010s. Just add more zombie Pokemon, make the story not fall off in the second half, rework all the puzzles, and screw it, give hobbies an evolution, I don't care. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Hope you all are having a good time, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.